Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com as well as the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel. Click subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, basically any podcatcher that you listen to is always appreciated. And check me out more on the YouTube channel. You get quick take reviews. You also get all of the podcasts, as well as some other special stuff. You can also check us out at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. There you get series like Life Soundtrack and Leaving the Collection, film festival discussion, short film discussion, Oscar discussion, and more. That is at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. So today, This year marks the 30th anniversary of a lot of fantastic films. We already talked about one on the podcast earlier this year, The Crow. Which I've already talked about plenty of times, being the lightning rod discussion. This time we're going to talk about a different film. One that actually I took a little bit longer to warm up to. But now it's something where I can't imagine my life without it. And I can't imagine my life would be very different without this franchise, without this filmmaker, without these characters in my life, for a lot of reasons that we'll discuss on the podcast. My guest tonight, a returning original member of the podcast. He was somebody that we did a lot of feature-length commentaries for back in the day. We've talked a lot of Star Wars on here. We're getting away from Star Wars, but not too much because we're talking about Kevin Smith. Please join me in welcoming back to the podcast Ronnie Haynes. Ron, thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, Brian. Would you like a chocolate-covered pretzel?
I would not. I'm not as I'm not as dense as Michael Rooker's character in Mallrats is, thankfully. But the fact of the matter is, it's funny because of the fact that I don't know about you. It's funny because we really haven't talked about this. Mm-hmm. This is part of the reason why I wanted to do this conversation with you. There were a lot of reasons, but this was one of the main ones. Because we never really discussed our mutual, I don't think we've really discussed our respective relationships with Kevin Smith formed in terms of his films. If you are familiar with us as friends, we cosplayed Jane and Silent Bob several times in the early 2010s at Dragon Con, and you will find a lot of those pictures on the YouTube channel version of this podcast. And but it's funny because of the fact that part of the reason that makes this kind of an interesting one was in 1994 really kind of feels like that, for me at least, that's kind of where our friendship, at least the seeds of our friendship started.
Did it?
Because we had Spanish together.
Yeah.
And we started talking about movies.
Year?
Yeah, it was junior year.
Yeah.
We were talking about movies. We started talking about soundtracks. And then we saw a couple movies together.
We clarified this the other day. We didn't do Pulp Fiction together.
We never did Pulp Fiction together, even though I know I borrowed the soundtrack from you and made a copy of it for me because I loved it so much. But yeah, we never watched the first movie. It's funny. The first movie we watched together was freaking Disclosure. The most random ass movie imaginable. If you know anything about our friendship, you know anything about our interests. I can't think of a more random movie for us to have had our first movie going experience.
Well, I think we were having finals.
It was finals week. It was finals week. We were both getting out early, and I think we just decided to go to a movie together. And I can't remember why we chose that. But I think it was because neither of us had seen it yet. That's the only thing I can think of.
And Michael Crichton was kind of big with the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was funny. Like that was Michael Crichton, John Grisham. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
talking about them, but the fact of the matter is, it's like the '90s were very weird when it came to pop culture and what was big at that time. And Michael Crichton was one of those big names, so
Yeah.
Disclosure was certainly on people's radar. But we're talking about Clerks. We're talking about Kevin Smith. I will admit, when I first saw the original Clerks, I hated it. I was not a fan of it. And a big part of it for me was, I remember my mom and I watching it when just at home one night, and like it just bounced off of both of us. Like
Yeah.
we just did not care for whatsoever. And I think it was it. I think it was the degree of the language in it. I think it was just the idea that, to a certain extent, was too vulgar. And this movie notoriously was originally rated NC-17. It was all because of language, because there's nothing
Is
else.
that version on the X disc, the 10-year anniversary disc? Is the NC-17? I haven't
But
checked.
well, the thing is, so the NC-17, they did eventually appeal it and got it down to an R.
Oh, okay.
So,
So there
the
was never
version
like,
that
there
you
was never
see,
like a trimmed down
no,
version.
there's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But so I was not a huge fan of Clerks when it came out. Was slightly more of a fan of Mallrats, but I still thought it was too stupid. It wasn't until Chasing Amy and Dogma that I'm starting to go, okay, I see kind of where he's coming from as a filmmaker. And then when Jay and Silent Bob came out, which I know you and I did see together. We saw it with a couple of other friends.
Yeah. I can't remember who, but I do remember going to see that in the theater.
I think it was Dave and Fred.
Was it?
I
It might
think-
have been. Yeah.
Because I think it was an early screening. So but by that point, I was completely on board with Kevin Smith. So when did you first start getting into Kevin Smith?
Well, I had a roommate in 2001, a buddy of mine, James, who, yes, he was a stoner, was actually pretty into Kevin Smith from what I remember, and there was a lot of late night movie watching going on there in the time that I was living there, and at one point he started pointing me in the direction of, well, actually, weirdly enough, that was one of the first times, that was when I first saw Evil Dead. But back to the subject at hand. Yeah, I think that's when I first remember seeing Clerks. Was when I was living with my friend James in Athens, and obviously those movies are going to appeal to him. I honestly didn't get it at first either.
Yeah.
I think what I remember my first initial reaction to the first movie being is like, wow, I didn't appreciate it for what it was, being like the independent darling that it was. My first initial reaction I remember being, wow, that was pretty amateur.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like that was I think that's what was turning me off at first. But then I became more familiar with the idea of and the concept of independent film.
Yeah.
And why it's important, and why it matters and why a lot of these movies need to be seen. And I eventually watched it again at some point a couple years later. I was like, oh, okay, now I think I get it.
Yeah.
Then I think like just talking to you about movies in general. Yeah, I know. Again, I think Sam Raimi came up a bunch, and obviously Quentin Tarantino, because he was becoming super relevant at the time, and so he was at the front of the conversation a lot of time. But then we would eventually get back to Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
And Clerks and Chasing Amy and Dogma and Mallrats, even to a degree, which I actually now have more of an appreciation for than a lot of people. I think a lot of people grow to love that movie. It's just one of those movies. But Kevin Smith became a big part of the conversation between you and I, and then I don't remember whether or not Strikes Back was an early screening or not, but I don't remember that part. But I do remember going to see that with you, and thinking it was just one of the funniest things I'd seen.
Yeah.
I don't know in forever, and so that's pretty much when I became invested in Kevin Smith and in his world and everything, like, and then also like getting into the DVDs.
Yeah.
His DVDs are amazing.
They really are, yeah.
Like in terms of extras, in terms of commentaries, in terms of, but like I think I guess like when Strikes Back came out on DVD and had that amazing 2-disc special edition,
Yeah.
and it had all those extras. That's also at the same time when I really started getting into extras on DVDs. Period. You know, like I think you got into the commentaries and the documentaries and everything, and just okay, this guy is really interesting, and I really appreciate where he's coming from, and so on and so forth, and like Slacker, this, stoner slackers, like, they speak to me, man, like that kind of bull crap, just like.
Well, and it's funny because of the fact that, I think to a certain extent, I know for me, watching extras, there were times where I would almost watch Kevin Smith movies with the commentaries more than I would without.
Sure.
And
I mean, that phase too.
Yeah, but part of it is because of the fact I'm so familiar with the movies that it's like, or the TV show in terms of the Clerks animated series, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed listening to those, and I know when we were doing the commentaries.
Yeah.
I know that's something that I wanted to do. I wanted them to be fun. I wanted them to be enjoyable in the vein of what Kevin Smith and company were doing.
Yeah. So many of the extras could be just as engaging as the movies. In so many ways. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I think that the thing that's interesting about Clerks, going back to it, especially watching it 30 years removed, is that I think it's as immature as it feels in terms of the style, in terms of the use of black and white, in terms of the dialogue.
Yeah.
It ultimately does have something to say.
Yeah.
That I think connects with people. And especially people our generation, we're Gen X.
Yeah.
And that, you think about that stereotype of what Gen X, what people sold Gen X as in the 90s. And I think, I don't know about you, but I know for me, starting to get into the workforce personally, there were certainly times where I felt like Dante or felt like Randall, where it's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today. Or, just wanting to just tell off a customer because of how ridiculous they're being.
Yeah.
And
should we just make this a drinking game now? Anytime one of us says I'm not even supposed to be there today, just take a shot at home. Just take a shot because it's Anyway, no, that's you're very much on point with a lot of that. So I'm not sure how much I enjoy being stereotyped as a Gen Xer, but I guess like we get to the point where you just kind of accept it.
Well, and I know it's something that it's kind of taken me a long time to sort of accept that.
Yeah.
Because I've never really, because of the fact that most of the Gen X movies were about people who were slightly older than us, on the older side of Gen X, it's hard to see it was hard for me for a while to see a connection with the older generation of Gen X. And now, looking at removed from like 20, 30 years, I kind of, I get it. I do kind of understand it. I do kind of see where there are times in my life where I've lived that cliche to a certain extent.
Sure.
I've felt that cliche in my bones of like, oh, what am I doing here? What I feel like I should be doing this, but I'm not doing this. I want to be doing something else, but it's fascinating. And I think part of the reason why I've endeared to Clerks a little bit more.
How long did you work at Regal, Brian?
Almost 22 years. But at least, but the thing is, here's the thing I will say. Even
I'm not knocking. Look how long I've been at some of my
I know.
shitty jobs. So,
but but to be fair, Regal led me to the job that I'm at
Yeah,
now,
no,
which
yeah,
I love.
absolutely. And you're really happy.
And the thing is, it's like I loved working at Regal for a long time. I didn't hate it.
Right.
The last few years of my time at Regal are another story entirely, but which I think I've gone through in other podcasts. But the fact of the matter is, it's like when you feel like you're stuck in a job, when you feel like, and to a certain extent, I mean, even
triggered.
yeah, right. Exactly. But I mean, the thing is, it's like, I know early on in my time at Regal, I definitely felt stuck because of the fact that it's like, even though I was getting into management, projection, stuff like that, I still felt like there was something else I needed to be doing with my life. And I mean, that was right around the time Clerks 2 came out. I know you've always,
that's my favorite Kevin Smith.
yeah,
movie.
and I feel like you've always been more of a fan of Clerks 2 than I have.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's like
It's his best movie.
we'll get into it.
We'll get into it.
I mean, I think that really, I think one of the things that's really interesting about these movies, especially thinking about on the other side of Regal for me, I see how each movie sort of relates to a time in my life where I was at Regal. And it's weird because of the fact that it's like, so that, and I think that's where my awareness of myself as being Gen X has come more and more to play because of the fact that Clerks, I think, is one of the better representations of Gen X in a large degree. And I think especially once you get into Clerks 2, once you get into Clerks 3, you definitely feel that more and more. The older they get, the more we understand where they're coming, how their life has gone. It just really resonates with us where it's like, wow, I feel this in my bones. Like, even if the jokes aren't as hilarious as they used to be, there's a sincerity to them that I think holds up extremely well.
Yeah. Well, I like, talking about sincerity as movies have gone on, I'm like, I just actually remember like walking out of Jay and Silent Bob reboot and starting to think like, there's a lot of crying in that for a Kevin Smith. and then I watched Clerks 3. I was like, there's a lot of crying in that for Clerks. I was like, yeah, Kevin Smith is definitely getting more sentimental as he goes on. I think and like that's, and I'm not sure what to make of that, other than like it is what it is, and it's like yeah. I mean, I guess it's a choice, it's a direction to take these characters in that does mostly make sense.
Yeah,
but also the other thing was like, I mean, I was watching I this past week I watched Clerks 1 and Clerks 3 for kind of like homework, and I watch Clerks 2 like all the time. It's one of my comfort movies. It's basically one of my very favorite comfort movies. So I watch that all the time but I was watching 1 and 3 for some catch up this week, and yeah, I was like, I mean, 3 is, I don't know, like there's some aspects of 3 that feel a little lazy, a little like like there are parts of it that feel like it's being shot more like a TV show than a movie necessarily. I think like again like I don't know. I watched Clerks 2. I see passion behind a lot of the movie, and there's and the thing is with Clerks 3. There did end up being a story to tell. Yeah, I felt like I mean that's the thing. There was a reason to spend more time with these characters. I saw I was skeptical going into Clerks 3 because again I loved Clerks 2 so much, and I thought that was like the perfect ending for those characters. Yeah, and then but then oh, Clerks 3 really Kev. Well, really? I mean, but then I watched it. Or no, I think the first trailer did sell me on. I was like, oh, okay, that is actually a not terrible idea for a premise for Clerks 3. Yeah. You had something to say. I think.
Well, and the thing is, it's like let's put into context the era, the mindset that Kevin Smith was no doubt in when when he did Clerks
Yeah,
3.
well, he just had a heart
He was
attack.
coming off of a heart attack that
Yeah.
very nearly killed him.
Yeah.
Basically had to completely transform his life.
Yes.
And
Lost
in a way,
ton
lost
of
a
weight.
shit ton of weight.
Yeah.
Had to
Went
basically, went vegan, just changed his entire life
Yeah.
because of this just amazing. I don't want to say a near-death experience is amazing because as somebody who's lived through one, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a wake-up call.
Sure.
Even if you don't necessarily get what that call was supposed to be early on, it's going to come at you. I mean, I think that is one of the things that I like so much about Clerks 3. It took me a couple of years to watch it. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I wanted to watch it in context of Clerks 1 and Clerks 2, and it had been a while since I'd watched those two. So I eventually decided to wait until I was prepping for this episode to watch Clerks 3, and I know there are a lot of choices we've talked about that I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where did they make this? Why did they make this choice?
Yeah.
But and I think
Should we just
we
spoil
can
it?
we can because
Yeah.
I mean it's a 2-year-old movie. I
Yeah.
mean it's been out for 2 years.
Yeah, and
So-
anyone who listens to this is gonna be familiar with them. So yeah.
Yeah.
It starts out with Becky having been killed in a drunk driving accident, and I think the baby too. I guess right, but Dante and his baby.
So the thing that
Was she pregnant with the baby when
she was?
Okay.
Yeah, because that is one of the key points in the third act
Yes.
of Clerks 2 is that she's pregnant,
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, was she pregnant?
and that was pregnant with Dante's kid.
Was she pregnant though at the time of the drunk driving accident? That's
That's the impression I got.
Yeah.
In the film, I got that impression that it's like
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
okay, because I mean obviously we never see him taking care of a child.
No, exactly.
So
exactly.
it had to have been. So that's one of the things that jarred me so much
Yes.
about it. The fact that Becky was dead right off the bat. It's like, what?
That's a choice. Yeah.
I mean, it's like so, and it seems to me. So obviously that happened very soon after
Clerks 2.
the end of Clerks 2.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, that's quite a choice. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Exactly.
I will say I love the use of the My Chemical Romance song at the beginning. I think it's very appropriate for the type of tone that he's setting. And it makes sense in the context of that list at the beginning. But at the same time, I'm like, really? But as the film goes on, it ultimately becomes more of a Randall story because Randall's the one with the heart attack.
Yes.
He's the one who has the heart attack, and there are times as that sequence is going on where it's like, why are you baking? Like Kevin Smith clearly went through a serious situation, but he's making it kind of ridiculous in the way he's running Randall, because Randall's almost like offering color commentary on it, and as it's going, it's like, what are you doing here, Kevin?
No, I actually appreciated that's the thing when again I'm just going back to when the first trailer dropped. That's actually when I became very sold on the idea of a Clerks 3. I was like, okay, so this starts off with Randall having a heart attack. Then he decides he wants to make a movie.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's meta, and I think that's actually, it feels like, it felt ultimately like a good excuse to make a Clerks 3.
Yeah.
That wasn't very, I appreciate where he was coming from. I appreciated the context that was put in.
I think the meta aspect of them making a movie them making essentially Clerks.
Yes, yeah.
That's the movie they're making. That's funny. the sense that they're essentially making Clerks works for me.
Yeah.
I like the idea where it's like Randall has this epiphany where it's like he wants
To be Kevin Smith.
well, he wants to feel like he's leaving something behind.
Yeah.
And I know for me that's important. You know, I know for me over the years, as you know, I've certainly dealt with my own mortality. I've certainly dealt with other people's mortality in terms of loved ones. And
we all at this
it's
point.
yeah. And I know for me, one of the things that I want to do is to feel like I'm leaving back behind something of myself. Because I mean, you know, if you know me, you know I do not have kids, so it's basically just what I leave behind when it comes to sonic cinema, when it comes to music, when it comes to all of that. That's for me. And what does that look like? And that's part of the reason I love the idea of having a conversation like this with you, is because of the fact that this is part of, like, as much as we love talking about Star Wars, as much as we've talked about Star Wars over the years, that's not just the only thing that our friendship is predicated on. That's not the only thing that our shared love of movies is predicated on. There's also the Kevin Smith thing. And I mean, honestly, when we went to go see Kevin Smith stand up,
Yeah.
and he was talking about his podcast,
Yeah.
that's where
Oh,
that's where I decided I wanted to transition to podcasting.
Yeah.
So again,
remember that.
another reason to talk about Kevin Smith on this. And
Did they answer like 3 questions the whole?
I think so, but I mean, honestly, I'm
It
not
was supposed to be kind of a Q&A, wasn't it? And
a little bit, but I mean, at the same time,
I just thought it was funny. I just thought it was funny because it was supposed to be kind of like a night, one of those nights with Kevin Smith sort
Yeah.
of things. Also, kind of stand up. Also, kind of Q&A.
Yeah.
And like I think he ended up answering like 3 or 4 questions the whole night because he could just go on and on and on and on.
oh yeah, but I still absolutely
No,
loved it. It was
I
wonderful.
did too. I just found that funny. That like at the end of the night, I was like, he answered like 3 questions.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But no, it was a great because that was another night we cosplayed as Jay and Bob.
Yeah.
And I think at one point when he was like walking out like and shaking everyone's hand, he
Yeah.
he gave me like a double take. I was like, what?
Yeah, because he walked out like right down our row,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And
I shook his hand. And he was like, what the fuck?
but no, I mean the idea of him making a movie about making Clerks makes sense
Yeah.
because of the fact that you do feel in a big way. I do think even though the choice of Becky being dead at the beginning is very jarring.
Yeah.
He makes so many choices throughout the rest of the film that truly make you feel like this whole thing is coming full circle.
Yes, and then as we discussed the other day, Becky being dead at the beginning does help the ending.
It does. It does, very much so.
For another reason that's very spoilery.
Yeah.
But, and I guess we can go into that now. That like Dante is the one who ends up dying at the end of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Which is, again, like I another one of those things you're not sure about at first, but then after it resonating with you, and after processing
Well, and the thing that I think part of the reason so much of this, where it's like, so much of why we're like, well, I'm not sure how I feel about this, is because regardless
Holy
of
shit,
anything,
we're their age.
Well, no, I mean, there's that, but
holy shit, I could die of a heart
but
attack
no,
tomorrow.
no, I think so much of a big part of that is when you think about the first 2 Clerks, Dante's the main character. I mean, yes, it's Dante and Randall's story, but Dante is our main character into these stories. He's the one we're following into these stories. The fact that so much of Clerks 3 is about Randall is like, that's such a weird move. But as you said, it ends up working well in the end. And I think, and the thing is, it's like, I think, Dante and Randall have this great moment at the end of Clerks 2 when after they're in jail because of the donkey show and all of that stuff. But he has this big moment of Randall has this big moment where he basically tells Dante he loves him, and it's like, what am I supposed to do with my life if you're not here? Because Dante was supposed to go off to Florida with Emma, his fiancée. And it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with my life? I mean, and it was a startling moment because it was arguably the most sincere their relationship had gotten at that point.
Yeah.
But it works so well because of the fact that it's like you do really start to see Randall as a character who's not just being a smartass, getting them in trouble with his mouth in his choices.
Yeah.
And because for so much of the first two movies, Dante's the straightforward one, and Randall trying to do everything by the book, or at least reasonably by the book. And Randall's the one who he's going to cut corners.
Yeah.
And, such as, selling cigarettes to a 5-year-old in the first Clerks. But then you have this moment with Randall where it's like, dude, what am I supposed to do without you? I mean, I love
that emotional scene. I think works better than a lot of emotional scenes in 3. I think like that's But
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But it also it's very organic and it's very.
And I think part of the reason it works so much better than it does in some of those scenes in 3 is because it feels like in so much of 3 that Randall's kind of backslid.
Yeah.
Into how he feels about Dante. And it's like, it feels like going back to the original Clerks.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. And the cartoon.
Yeah.
But
Randall gives Dante so much shit in the cartoon.
Oh God, yeah. But it's still hilarious.
It's still
hilarious the way he does it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that was most striking to me, where it's like the fact that Kevin Smith then he was able to stick the landing in 3 as well as he did. That he got Randall to a point where he realized, I'm completely undervaluing Dante. And it's like he shows him the movie, and it's obviously the first Clerks, and stuff like that. And
you're the Luke Skywalker of my story.
But and I mean, Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson are always a treat in these roles. I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
They have moments that just absolutely make me laugh my ass off, constantly.
And some of the conversations too are just so.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna repeat any of the things they say because it's like I don't want to be canceled.
The fact that, yeah, I mean, I think it's like
that's why I call it Creepy Boy.
As rough as as rough as the one scene is where he's trying to reclaim a certain racial slur I'm like, that is completely a Randall thing to do. It's completely a Randall thing to do.
Okay, I'm taking it back.
It's like, but the thing is, it's like I think the reason 2 works so well is because you have all of these celebrities and stuff like that are playing the customers.
That 30-second Ben Affleck scene.
Yeah, Ben Affleck, Jason Lee, and Wanda Sykes as the wife in that scene. It's just
sorry.
It's just,
some of the things I'm willing to repeat.
Yeah,
they're still pretty bad.
They're still rough, but yeah. But no, I mean, and the fact that but I mean, we've also got to talk about, as far as Clerks, we've also got to talk about Elias.
I love Elias.
I love how he's the prototypical virgin geek in
Fact,
two.
because the thing is, I love Elias because I was basically Elias for. I was pretty much Elias in like my late teens, early 20s.
I think a lot of us were.
Yeah.
I certainly was too. To a certain extent.
Because I was
without the
involved
religious
in,
stuff.
I was involved in a youth group. I was like, I got sucked into that stuff too. So I'm like, that's the thing. And now I'm an atheist, but that's beside the point. That's a whole other discussion. But,
Right.
Yeah, but like he's basically my favorite character in two, I think. And
Yeah.
Well,
and the thing is, it gives Randall another punching bag to take things off of Dante. Mr. Dante. And I feel like that joke goes back to the animated series to a certain extent because there's one episode where Jay is constantly calling him Mr. Dante. But no, Elias is absolutely hilarious, and I love what they do with him in 3, where
what do they do with him in 3?
he basically has a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
When he doesn't feel like his prayers for Randall are coming on deaf ears.
Yeah, exactly. Becomes a born again Satanist.
Yeah.
Hail Satan.
And he's into crypto, and it's like, yeah, he's about the worst. I still love him as a character, but he's arguably the worst version of that type of character.
Yeah.
But I think I will say one of my absolute favorite lines that Elias has is in 3, where he says the Lord Holy Ghost me. It's like when he doesn't feel like his prayers for Randall are answered, which is per where he leads to Satanism.
Yeah.
But
Elias.
But the thing is, it still feels like as insane of a choice as it is, you understand the logic of why that character makes that choice. And it's stupid, but it's still hilarious. And I mean, no, he's absolutely fantastic. And you know, what did
you think of that scene in 3 where they're like trying out and like Sarah Michelle Gellar pops up, Freddie Prinze Jr. pops up, Ben Affleck pops. Like, did that feel gratuitous to you, or like?
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit because of the fact that it's like, what are we doing? Yeah. I mean, especially
these are all the celebrity friends he's made, and like
yeah, exactly,
like doing Master of the Universe and whatnot, his other projects, but. Did that feel gratuitous to you? Did that feel like
it's a bit over the top? It didn't really
Fred
do.
Armisen.
He
pops up.
I mean, I will admit some of the line readings were really funny. Yeah. Of like some of the lines that we've known forever.
Yeah.
And then they end up just going with Dante, Randall, Jay, and Silent Bob, even though like all of them are 30 years older. Yeah. And it's like, how is this going to work? It's like, but
Silent Bob, you rude motherfucker! What's your cutest hair?
Silent Bob being the cinematographer is the funniest part. The fact that and his monologue in this movie being about the black and white photography. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, I think he's been waiting about 30 years to put that in a movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny because of the fact that it's like, obviously, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is also about making a movie about Blunt Man and Chronic, which is Jay and Silent Bob. But this is the fact that he made a movie that's a little bit more meta about that type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's weird. I mean, I do really like Clerks 3, though. I do enjoy it. Yeah.
It ends up being a really solid companion piece to the first 2 movies.
Yeah, it does. And it does bring everything full circle.
Yeah. And until the next movie that Kevin Smith. Okay, this is my last movie with these characters ever. It's going to bring everything full circle, and then.
Which is funny because Jay and Silent Bob was supposed to be that.
Yes.
And then he's like, Jersey Girl fails, and then it's like, well, it looks like I got to go back to the well.
Exactly.
But I mean, Clerks 2. It's funny because of the fact that I do think Clerks 2. I know Jersey Girl gets a lot of crap, and I've always thought it was kind of underrated. but I do like that Clerks 2 kind of progresses in the same fashion of a certain narrative maturity as he was working in with Jersey Girl, with Dogma, with Chasing Amy. And so the fact that he found a way to progress with that. I mean, I think Clerks 3 was something where it's like I think I think, he'd wanted to make the movie about a decade ago.
Right.
And then apparently Jeff Anderson just wasn't a huge fan of the script. They have falling out. And
Did they have falling out? Because
they had a little bit of a falling out, is what my understanding.
I heard. I mean, well, we discussed it the other day. I thought that Jeff Anderson just didn't want to act anymore.
I think that was probably part of it, but I think another part was he was not happy with the direction of the script, and so after they reconciled and started again, that's kind of the direction that what we see in Clerks 3 is kind of the direction that went in. And it's like, then you have Kevin Smith's heart attack, which happened in 2018, so it's like that fits into it. I mean, I do think it was an interesting choice to make it that way. It still was a very interesting choice. I still think it ultimately makes a very good choice, but because there are some very funny things in this, there are also some very sincere things in it. But I mean, it also feels like something that it did take a long birth because of the fact that it's like, some of these ideas probably were ideas he had early on that he still wanted to keep hold of, but he wasn't quite sure the best way to execute them. And
what was the budget for Clerks 3?
That's a good question.
Because I know Clerks 2 was $5 million.
Yeah,
I know that much. What Clerks 1 was like 130,000.
yeah, it was. No, it was 27,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 27,000.
Okay,
It was low.
And then
Yeah.
Clerks 2 is $5 million.
Clerks 3 was 7 million.
Okay.
So, but I mean, you have to.
That goes back to my technical issues with Clerks 3, and a lot of it feeling like it was shot like a TV show and not it felt like a step back technically speaking.
Yeah.
For me anyway.
I can see that.
Yeah, but,
I can see that.
I think Clerks 2 is so solid and just
Yeah.
such a perfect movie in so many ways. I don't know. But I really did enjoy revisiting those movies this week.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you see my Ronnie is watching Clerks post, and it is a picture 37 question mark. Did you not see that?
I think I missed that.
Okay.
I was busy this past week.
Heather was the only one that reacted to it.
I had to have missed it because of the fact that
you would have liked it if you'd seen it, I would thought.
Oh yeah, I would have.
Yeah,
I don't know how
okay.
I know how I missed it. I was busy at work.
Okay.
But
then I love. Let's see. It's been a while since I've watched the animated series, but I loved the one episode that stand out the most is the one where they're kind of lampooning Duck Amuck.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's instead of Bugs Bunny being the animal, it's Jay and Bob. They're like, ain't I a stink? That kind of shows where the cartoon could have gone if they'd really given it a chance.
Yeah.
Of course they didn't. So
they talk about it as much as they can on the commentaries. And no, I mean the thing that I enjoy about the animated series is the fact that it plays to some of the more entertaining aspects of Clerks, but also understands that it's a cartoon series, so it's completely ridiculous. You have sequences where you have a movie that's set. You have an episode that's set in a courtroom. You have a scene. You have an episode that's basically lampooning Outbreak.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then you have the one that's lampooning Temple of Doom, Bad News Bears, Last Starfighter.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then of course you have the last one, which is Duck Amuck.
Yeah. Didn't the courtroom one? That's the one that was. It's finished with Korean anime.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, Bear's driving. But no, that's also the one where like Randall makes George Lucas give him his money back for Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
It's like, thank you.
Yeah. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Spike Lee, Joel
Spike Lee.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
And I know in the commentary some people said the last one should have been Kevin Smith. But
Yeah.
but no, I mean and
Oh my God, Bear's driving.
I took so many notes during this one. I took so many notes during these three. Especially with Clerks, after almost 3 decades myself in customer service, I completely understood. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. It's like I completely understand where these characters are coming from and their frustration with customers.
Sure.
And it's like I definitely understand that. One of the things that I love and one of the things I made a point of, the movie is nominally set in the early 90s, so 93, 94. And I love that it is a controversial opinion at that time that Empire Strikes Back is a better film than Return of the Jedi. I do love that. It's like, remember how innocent Star Wars fandom was when that was the most controversial thing?
Oh my God.
That it was that Empire, which one you like better, Empire or Jedi?
Yeah.
And the Ewoks. Remember when that was the most controversial aspect of Star Wars? Or the most controversial thing fans would get into?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you got to mention the Death Star contractor scene. And
Jedi being a bunch of Muppets.
yeah. The Ewoks being a bunch of Muppets.
Yeah.
It's funny. We don't really talk about the prequels in 2.
No, they don't.
And that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing.
They're too busy letting Randall rip on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
that
I'm
conversation with the customer and Randall and Elias.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
A lot of stuff I'm not going to repeat here.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Even though I know a lot of us even before that movie came out, like had the exact same thoughts that Randall had about that scene at Rivendell.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. Well, doesn't Kevin Smith didn't like Lord of the Rings? I don't think. I saw him on a talk show where he basically said he did not like those. He did not care for those movies.
Yeah.
So that kind of sells whether or not it's a joke or not. I guess he really, but that's also where one of my very favorite lines in movie history comes from is there's only one return and it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That's one of my lines right there. That's one of my favorite lines ever.
Yeah. No, and the back and forth he and Elias and the customer have, that's absolutely true. And his reenactment of the movies, where he's like, movie 1.
Here's the first movie.
Here's the second movie. And it's hilarious. And but no, as far as 2, you're definitely right about having a bigger budget because there's a freaking musical sequence in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's
I love the dance scene. I love that.
yeah,
I love
there's
that
a
so
dance
much.
sequence in this movie.
I love that so
It's
much.
like,
So
oh
much.
my God.
I'm smiling from ear to ear on that part. I love it. Yeah.
It's something that you couldn't have done.
So pure. It's so pure. I love
It
that.
is.
I love that.
It
I love that
is.
scene
And
so much.
there's a sincerity to Clerks too that I love.
Yeah.
That is, the thing is, it's like I think there. It also goes to. There's something about the first Clerks too that is sincere, but in its own raucous way, right? Because of the fact that we do come to empathize with Dante and Randall. Mm-hmm. We do kind of appreciate where they're coming from when it comes to, the customers that the experiences, the life that they're in.
Yeah.
As outrageous as it gets, whether it's the funeral that we don't see.
Yeah.
And the aftermath of that, or things with Caitlyn, the 37. And it's like
with
in a row?
with not Caitlyn, but
Veronica.
Veronica.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. In a row.
But yeah, I mean, there's, and the gum rep
Yeah.
becoming an
Julie's gone.
anti-smoking person. And it's just such a ridiculous set of asides that's just absolutely wonderful, where it's like, now that I'm like, I appreciate where the language fits into that movie, it doesn't feel gratuitous. It's like, okay, this is really this is really funny. I mean, I think that was my issue at the beginning. The first time I saw it was, why does it have to be this vulgar? Why does it have to be this vulgar? I mean, granted, I'd already seen Pulp Fiction by that point, but it's like, that I at least understood why it was as vulgar as it was. But it's like, why does Clerks have to be this vulgar? It's like, what's the point of it? The point is, it's hilarious. And, and the thing is, it's like and I was not in customer service at the time. Now that I've been in customer service, I get it. It's like, you know what?
Oh, I get it.
You realize what a joy it would be to actually tell customers? It's like, yeah, no, get away. But
You may fuck off in that direction.
definitely being in a video store was not the same as Randall was. Was not quite the same thing. You didn't really get. No, I mean, granted,
We basically had that video store like right up the street that didn't. 4-star video. That was basically RST video.
Everybody had that type of video store at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I would go to like Blockbuster or Video Wonderland was like up the road where I worked for a couple of seasons. But yeah, I mean, I remember video stores like that, and it's like, it's basically one of those things where it's like, okay, that's
with the room in the back with all the dirty movies.
Oh yeah, I mean it's even if you didn't go in there,
you knew what was there.
You knew what was there
Behind the curtain.
Yeah, you knew what was there. It's like you would, because it's one of those things where it's like it's not like it's a blackout curtain or something like that. Sometimes it would just be beads or something like that. And it's like, you can clearly see something on the other side. So it's like, what's the point of this? But I love Randall making the video purchase order and like just all of the titles.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh my God.
Were you on Happy Scrappy Pup? Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, oh my God. Didn't they recreate that scene in 2 and 3? And it's like, she wanted to do it as Lucy. I don't get it.
Oh, and it's funny because of the fact that, I mean, we haven't talked about Jay and Bob yet.
Which is weird because...
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Here's the thing. I want to apologize now because fact of the matter is, we almost went to the... Well, that's the thing, like, Kevin Smith was doing Reboot as a roadshow sort of thing. And we went to that, and we were going to go as Jay and Bob. I was in a really shitty mood.
Yeah.
I was in a horrible headspace, period, and I shot that idea down like the day of, and I'm apologizing, basically apologizing on your podcast for that now, because like I do feel, because fact of the matter is, if we gone into that as Jay and Bob, we would have been fucking rock stars.
Oh yeah.
We would have, yeah.
I mean, I think I still more or less. I think I did everything but the. I think I did everything but the wig.
Yeah.
I think I still did the jacket.
Did you?
I might have still done the jacket.
I didn't wear the hat.
I definitely wore the hat.
But like this thing, like
if the movie's hat.
If we got in full cosplay, we
would have
been rock stars that night.
Oh yeah, and I mean,
not like how we were listening, like because the first year we did Jay and Bob at Dragon Con, it was not like necessarily, it wasn't really movie accurate costume. It wasn't really a movie accurate cosplay. But when we decided to stand in front of the convenience store, people fucking got it.
Yes.
And people ate that shit up. They were like,
my favorite, like we spent like all of Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
All of Sunday morning and afternoon out there. And it was the most delightful thing ever.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that
you were rock stars that day.
We truly were.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to your point, they weren't costume accurate. Like they weren't
movie accurate.
They weren't movie accurate, but they were
close
enough.
But then when we like stood in front of the
my favorite thing, I still remember. I still have core memories of people walking down the hill to the Sheridan. They would look over because the thing is, so the liquor store that was across the street from the Sheridan, it's not there anymore. Pisses me off.
Oh.
And it's brick. It's like
bullshit.
No. A piece of me died when that happened. Yeah. When it was perfect for what the beginning of for what the quick stop looks like.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect.
Now, did we ever agree on whether or not we came up with the idea together, or like? Because I think I know we were walking around downtown, and I think I want to say we came up with the idea together.
I think it was. I'm willing to just say it's a mutual idea.
Yeah.
I think early on I was like, oh no, I had that idea, but no, you definitely had a big part to play in that idea. Mm-hmm. So let's just say it's a mutual idea.
Sure.
So one of my favorite moments was us just sitting out there, and people would be walking down to the Sheridan, and they would take a glance, and then some people would look back or go back. It would click with them. It's like, okay, it may not have been movie accurate.
Yeah.
It was accurate enough to where people got it.
I was like, yes. And then the following year, the cosplay was more movie accurate.
Yeah, and we did like ended up doing it like the entire weekend too.
Yeah.
Because I think
and people loved it, and it was
we did. Well, I remember. I think we went to the Bunny Hutch at the pool that Friday. Saturday afternoon we did Jane Bob, and that's where we did a lot of our, we did most of our doing panels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Sunday we did a lot of the hanging around at the liquor store and stuff like that. And we actually got a great picture with Mike Reese, one of the writers of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
Because we were at that panel, and he's like, "I've got. You wanted a picture with us."
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yes.
But no, I mean, it was, and the thing is, it's like I think if you told me when I was watching these movies for the first time that I would be part of a cosplay involving two drug dealers, I never would have believed you. But the thing is, it's like, so I've certainly had playing people at the time say that I looked like Kevin Smith. Mm-hmm. I looked more like heavier Kevin Smith at the time. I've thankfully lost some weight myself. But at the same time, I mean, I still, if I do the beard right, I do everything right. It's like I still look like Kevin Smith.
The hat and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything. Yeah, like, I would weirdly get told I look. It's like, I see the Jason Mewes in me. I was like,
that's the thing. It's like
I never agreed with it, but yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, it's like when you had the wig on and the hat on, it worked.
And the jacket and everything.
You could see it more. I mean, if you're just you, it doesn't really register. But because of the fact that we ended up, especially the wigs were the most important part of that part for us getting it right.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the jackets right. We got all of that right as much as we could. The next time we did, And but the thing is, it's like the wigs were everything.
Yeah.
And it's like once we got the correct wigs for that, it's like we were.
Didn't Heather and I buy the wig for you separately? Like you weren't like, didn't we buy that for you?
I believe so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We were Halloween.
Because I think you were.
Heather and I were like Halloween shopping. We were just like,
Yeah, you ended up getting both of the wigs.
Yes.
And yeah, it just happened to work out perfectly because the length of the hair was right. Mm-hmm. It wasn't too long. Mm-hmm. And I mean, granted, it had like the mullet on the sides, but it's like,
who got you that hat?
That was you. It was you. And the hat that I'm actually wearing tonight.
Ordered it directly from Jane Silent Bob's secret stash in New Jersey, yo.
Yeah.
No, it was, and I talked to one of the guys that I think ended up being on Comic Book Men. I think on the phone when I like just placed the order. I was like, yeah, can I order movies hat for my friend? Because his birthday, we're going to cosplay as Jay and Bob. And he's like, yeah, I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the guys who ended up eventually. This was years before Comic Book Men, but
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I'm very happy to see you still wearing it all these years later.
Yeah. No, I knew I wanted to wear it for this record. I mean, I wasn't going to do the full cosplay because this is video.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no. I'm not doing that for audio only.
Exactly.
But I did want to at least wear it.
We should find an excuse to cosplay, full cosplay at some point.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny because of the fact that for a couple of years I've done cosplay as Buster Keaton at Dragon Con, and it makes sense that clearly I resonate with people who don't talk a whole lot. I mean, you know, which is hugely ironic given the fact that I've got a podcast. But if I didn't talk on podcasts, we'd be boring as hell. But no, I mean, we have to talk about Jay and Silent Bob at this point.
How can we not?
How can you not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because of the fact that it's like, they're arguably the next big main characters in these movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that seemed like it's touched on in Clerks 3, but like more so as a joke than anything else. But like they basically say Jay and Bob were the R2D2 and C3PO of these two universe. They kind of are.
They very much are.
Yeah.
No, I mean that is, and the funny thing is, it's like you do get. It's funny because you and I have talked about how we kind of embody the dynamic.
Yeah.
And we played into it.
That one picture particularly.
Oh, there are some fantastic pictures. That
one selfie I took in the hotel room.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Fantastic.
That's my favorite picture of you and me.
Yeah.
It's like it's both very much you and me, and it's also very much Jay and Bob. It's just like it's perfect. Yeah.
No, I mean we definitely fit the dynamic between Jay and Bob. But, I mean, you do really understand, you do really see the R2-D2 and C3PO aspect in there, too.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you know, C3PO is not as vulgar as Jay is, but, you know, Silent Bob's the one who gets shit done.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
But, yeah. No,
it saves everyone from the poop monster with the...
the air freshener or something like that. God, I love Dogma. Listen to my Class of '99 episode with Stuart Delany. That was a trip to talk about that with him.
Mm-hmm. Dogma's my second
theological standpoint.
Dogma was my second favorite Kevin Smith movie, and then Jay and Silent Bob's. So that's my top three. Clerks 2, Dogma, and then Jay and Silent Bob.
I think Dogma is still his best movie, but I'm definitely willing to make a case for Clerks 2 being up there as well.
I think Kevin Smith had just as much to say with Clerks 2 as he did with Dogma.
I agree. He absolutely did.
He had just as much to say in Clerks 2 as he did with Dogma. He had just as much to say about, you know, that lifestyle as he did about religion and Dogma.
And the thing is, it's like I think it's weird to see how the characters of Jay and Bob evolve in these movies too, right? Because they're basically just on the sideline. They're here to, you know, just torment Jay and Bob. Dante and Randall,
yeah.
to a certain extent. They're here they're just to do shit and be silly in the first one, and then you see the growth in them in Clerks 2, where Jay's gotten sober, which is reflective.
But he's still
he's still a drug dealer, but he's gotten sober, which is reflective of Jason Mewes
getting sober.
Yeah, and
fuck. Anyway,
and of course he calls it, and he's found religion.
Yeah.
With the holy fucking Bible, you know.
The fucking Bible. Hey, the holy fucking Bible.
And the fact that they have it, what's wild is they end up having all of the money that gets them the quick stop in the video store again at the end, which I mean,
I loved how that worked out.
I do too. Yeah, it's great because of the fact that it also ties into Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that chances are
their motherfucking movie check.
Yeah, that's how they have that money, and also they've like been able to make peace with Dante and Randall after having restraining orders gotten against them. In Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
And then their weed dealer, and then they're running a weed store where the video store was in the third one, which is hilarious. But yeah. No, I love the evolution of these characters in these three movies. But I mean, even in the non-Clerks movies,
I was gonna say, have you seen the trailer, or it was some sort of ad for 4:30 movie, which looks good. But I was gonna say, like, it's like from the writer and director of Dogma, Chasing Amy, Clerks 1, Clerks 2, Clerks 3, and then goes, and probably Clerks 4. Did you see that?
No, I have not seen that. I hope I get a chance to see that movie soon. I do want to see it, especially finally watching Clerks 3, because honestly, like, I mean, I do like Tusk to a certain extent, but it's just really messed up.
I still haven't seen Tusk. I'm not sure.
I'm not a fan of Yoga Hosers, which I know we watched together.
I was like, that was the movie,
and I wasn't a fan. And we both thought Reboot was okay.
Yeah,
it wasn't as good as the first one.
Yeah, I was like, that's what started to like dawn on me that Kevin Smith might be.
But I mean, having finally rewatched Clerks, having finally watched Clerks 3, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He still has something to say, so it's like, okay, I'm curious to. I mean, I will say it's like that's.
Zach, I was gonna say, like, Zack and Mary is a really solid
I enjoyed it, which is another one we saw together.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Arguably one of his more. I don't know, like, I haven't seen Tusk. I saw Jersey Girl like once years and years ago. I obviously am. So I haven't seen too much of his stuff outside of those characters, but no, Zack and Mary is very solid. I thought.
Did you see Cop Out?
No, I never did.
It's okay.
I never heard a good thing about that thing.
It's okay, but it's like, yeah, you can tell he's kind of out of his element in this one.
Yeah, well, I know Bruce Willis gave him a ton of.
Oh yeah, well, because of the fact that he's admitted that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I did not handle that as well as I should have.
No, yeah, exactly.
But I'm certainly, it's like, yeah, I know that Kevin Smith has gone record and he said that it's like, yeah, I didn't handle things as well as I should have on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's got some decent moments, but it's like, it's not really, you're not missing much.
I didn't think I was. That's why I never like went on my way to see it. So, and again, I never saw Tusk because I'm just not into body horror. I'm not into like torture porn. It's like I'm not into that.
It's definitely it's closer to body horror than it is torture porn.
Yeah.
It does have a lot of dark comedy in it.
It's just that sort of thing just isn't for me. So
if he ever makes Moose Jaws, I would say
Yeah.
maybe check it out.
Yeah. Wasn't it supposed to have Jay and Bob in it to a degree? I
I
thought
think so.
because like at that stand up thing, he said he was riding moose jaws.
Yeah.
He talks about riding moose jaws.
Yeah.
And he reads a scene that presumably has Jay and Bob in it. I remember that. I remember that much. He read a scene he'd written off of his phone that had Jay and like.
Yeah, and I'm trying to
Yes.
remember what roles they were supposed to be.
Yeah,
I
it was going to be Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean,
for-
I'm trying to figure out the Jaws correlation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I remember that there
Who
was
would be
supposed to.
Brody? Who would be? Yeah.
I mean, it would be hilarious if they were like Quentin and his partner.
Yeah.
Like that would be hilarious
Yeah.
if Jane and Bob were those characters.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but no, I mean that's if that movie ever comes out, I definitely want to see it because of the fact that it's ridiculous. But God, we've there's so many things.
We got off track, Brian.
But I mean, we're still talking about Kevin Smith.
Yes.
We're still talking about Clerks.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, the thing is, it's like, and especially with Jane Silent
I
Bob,
love-
we can't not talk about our cosplay of it,
Yeah.
of them. And I mean, I think, this is, I mean, when you talk about Kevin Smith, when you talk about the Clerks movies, you can't not talk about Kevin Smith's career as a whole because so
They're
much
so
of it
integrated.
is
So integrated.
bookended with the Views universe and with the Clerks characters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense that we're bringing up all of this other stuff. But I mean, it's also just an appreciation of Kevin Smith in general. And the thing is, it's like, if you told me in 1994 that he was going to influence me as a critic and as a film person discussing film, I would not believe it. I would not believe it at all. But the fact of the matter is, it feels very natural to a certain extent how my life has gone. And it's like in terms of how podcasting goes, and it's like, I know for me, I mean, it's not just about talking about movies. It's about talking about myself, talking about things that interest me, just enjoying conversations that I have about movies. I mean, as is part of the reason, it's part of the reason why I want you back on the podcast because of the fact that, I mean, we've always enjoyed talking about movies together, even when we're at each other's throats talking about movies together.
Last guy. I'm sorry. I'm just.
And the original Spider-Man, if
Yeah.
you remember that
Yeah.
commentary.
Yeah. First Spider-Man is kind of growing on me, but like,
Yeah.
But like, you'll never hear me say a nice thing about this.
Yeah, I know.
They touch on the sequel trilogy and Mandalorian and Clerks 3
A little bit.
Oh, and who's the actress that plays the doctor who saves Randall, who's also in Mandalorian?
Oh God. Now I gotta look it up.
See, the fact that I don't know Brian is, but you not knowing that, you being the human IMDb that you are.
I mean, part of it is because I've only seen Clerks. Clerks 3 once at this point.
She's
But
what is the actress's name? Because she's awesome in Clerks 3. She's awesome in, her character isn't as loved in Mandalorian. But yeah, what's her name, Brian?
oh, Amy Sedaris.
Amy Sedaris.
Okay. Yeah, Amy Sedaris.
That's
yeah.
actually,
Okay.
I like that. I like that little bit of meta-ness, that little bit of
Yeah.
meta with her not being familiar with Star Wars and Marvel and everything, and
Yeah.
well, she's also a big part of the
Right.
on Mandalorian. I did like that.
Well, no, I mean, I like that. I like that you had. And going to Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, where he had Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was very much playing up his, I mean, it's like, look, it's Mark Hamill.
Applause.
And he's got a sort of lightsaber.
Yeah.
A copyright appropriate lightsaber. And Carrie Fisher's just not in any way, shape, or form playing that type of character at all.
No.
But works for both of those actors.
Don't fuck with the Jedi Masters.
But no, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I just have always, I've always enjoyed, I can't say I've always enjoyed Kevin Smith's films, but
Yeah.
as I've warmed to them, I appreciate them, and I appreciate what he's brought to my life. I appreciate the opportunities I've had because of this, whether it's podcasting, whether it's cosplaying, which is something I never really would have considered before that. It's just been, it's been a big, I mean, that is a big part of why I wanted to have you on to have this discussion. It's like, I wouldn't have had this discussion if it wasn't you being part of it with me. And I'm really grateful we've been able to have this conversation.
Yeah. Well, likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. I'm not sure if I have anything to say that is that eloquent, or but yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you, and I'm appreciative of what it's done for our friendship. And,
Yeah.
And all the ups and downs. And
No, and the thing is, it's like, watching, it's funny because of the fact that, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about when we were talking about Jane and Silent Bob, how that very much feels representative of our dynamics in terms of you getting us together. It's very much our dynamics. But I mean, I also, especially watching Clerks 3, I also couldn't help but see a little bit of us in Dante and Randall as well.
Sure.
And I mean, I think that is one of the things that makes these characters so endearing, is the fact that it's like
They're real.
They feel like real people.
Yeah.
And it's like he
Even
did a cartoon.
Even in the exaggerated moments, even in the moments that are exaggerated, and like in the cartoon, there's an organicness to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's great. And I mean, I'm glad that it's been great to have you back on the podcast. It's great it's
really
great to finally have you back on the podcast. I'm glad we're at a point where we're able to have a discussion like this. And
In my very own place.
yeah, exactly.
My very own big boy apartment.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the Clerks?
I don't feel like I do.
Yeah.
Again, I've enjoyed the conversation, and I'll be I think I'll be interested in hearing what some of our friends think of this episode.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to listening to it myself.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you having me again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's truly a pleasure. And again, I've had this conversation in mind for us for a bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I brought it up 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that I knew I did want to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know anybody else I would have this conversation with.
Oh, wow.
Because of the fact that it's like,
When did the movie come out in '94? What month?
it was around, I think it was October, September,
October?
October.
Okay.
I know it played at Sundance.
Okay.
That's when Miramax bought it.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, it was like September or October.
Yeah. So right.
And we're right around 30th anniversary.
Yep.
But because October tends to be my horror month, we're doing this in September. Mm-hmm. So, but I do want to thank Ron for joining me on the podcast. As always, thank you very much to my listeners, however you listen to podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, whatever podcaster you listen to, like, subscribe, rate, and review, share it. It's always appreciated. And check me out at patreon.com/SonicCinema. I've got, like I said, October is my horror month. Again, I have Phil Faso back on. Again, talks about some horror from some different point of view. Going to talk about some films I've seen before and some films I haven't seen before. And check me out, patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. All my socials are listed on the site, but that site is, as always, www.sonic-cinema.com. Thank you very much.